When Hurricane Melissa tore through Jamaica in October 2025, no one expected what would come crawling out of the ground days later. A video started circulating on social media that stopped people mid-scroll. It showed something so bizarre, so unsettling, that millions of viewers couldn't look away. The ground itself seemed to be moving, writhing, alive. Thousands upon thousands of tiny creatures were emerging from the earth, covering roads, pathways, and yards in a living carpet that pulsed with desperate movement. The footage was apocalyptic, biblical, and it raised one terrifying question: what on earth was happening in Jamaica? If you're as fascinated by unexplained natural phenomena as we are, make sure to subscribe and help us reach 20,000 subscribers. We're on a mission to uncover the mysteries that nature throws at us, and your support means everything. The video that went viral was captured in Content, Manchester, a rural area in central Jamaica. The person filming could barely contain their shock. In the footage, you can see what appears to be hundreds of thousands of small, dark tadpoles swarming across concrete roads and dirt paths. They're moving in waves, their tiny bodies glistening wet, desperately wriggling towards something, anywhere. The sheer density is overwhelming. There's barely any space between them. It looks like the ground has transformed into a single, undulating organism. And the sound, though barely captured in most videos, is an eerie squelching chorus that makes your skin crawl. Comments flooded in immediately. "Is this the end times?" one user wrote. "I've lived in Jamaica my whole life and never seen anything like this," another commented. Theories exploded across social media platforms. Some claimed it was a sign of environmental collapse. Others suggested chemical contamination had mutated local wildlife. A few even proposed that underground caverns had burst open, releasing ancient creatures that had been trapped for millennia. The speculation was wild, creative, and completely understandable, because what people were witnessing genuinely looked otherworldly. But here's where our story takes its first turn into the realm of serious science. These weren't just any tadpoles, and their sudden appearance wasn't random. To understand what really happened in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa, we need to first understand the creature at the center of this mystery, the cane toad, also known as Rhinella marina. And trust me, once you learn about this animal, the mystery becomes even more fascinating. The cane toad is not native to Jamaica. It's an invasive species that was deliberately introduced to the island back in 1844. The reason? Pest control. Jamaica's sugar cane industry was being devastated by beetles and other insects that fed on the valuable crops. Someone had the bright idea that introducing cane toads from South America would solve the problem. These toads are voracious insect eaters, capable of consuming vast quantities of pests. On paper, it seemed like the perfect solution. In reality, it was an ecological disaster waiting to unfold. Cane toads are survivors. They're incredibly adaptable, can live in almost any environment, and have virtually no natural predators in Jamaica. An adult cane toad can grow to be quite large, some reaching up to 9 inches in length. But size isn't their only impressive feature. These toads are also prolific breeders, astonishingly prolific. A single female cane toad can lay between 8,000 and 30,000 eggs in a single spawning event. Let that number sink in. 30,000 eggs from one toad, and they can breed multiple times per year under the right conditions. Now, here's where the biology gets really interesting and where we start to unravel our mystery. Cane toads don't just breed anywhere. They need water. Specifically, they need still or slow-moving water bodies like ponds, ditches, puddles, or flooded areas. The female releases her eggs in long, gelatinous strings that can stretch for several feet. These eggs hatch within days, depending on temperature, releasing thousands upon thousands of tiny tadpoles into the water. Under normal circumstances, these tadpoles would develop in the water for several weeks, gradually transforming into toadlets through the process of metamorphosis. But circumstances in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa were anything but normal. To understand why thousands of tadpoles suddenly appeared to be emerging from the ground itself, we need to talk about what Hurricane Melissa actually did to the landscape. And this is where meteorology, hydrology, and biology collide in the most spectacular way. Hurricane Melissa hit Jamaica as a powerful tropical storm system in October 2025. The storm brought torrential rainfall, with some areas receiving over 10 inches of rain in just 24 hours. The impact was devastating. Roads flooded, rivers overflowed, homes were damaged, and entire communities were cut off from emergency services. But beyond the immediate human impact, something else was happening beneath the surface, something that would create the perfect conditions for an unprecedented breeding event. Jamaica's landscape is largely characterized by limestone karst topography. This means the island sits on porous rock riddled with caves, sinkholes, underground rivers, and natural drainage systems. When massive amounts of rain fall, as they did during Hurricane Melissa, water doesn't just sit on the surface. It penetrates deep into the ground, filling caverns, saturating the soil, and creating temporary underground water systems. These hidden waterways become perfect breeding grounds for cane toads. Here's what scientists believe happened. As Hurricane Melissa dumped unprecedented rainfall across Jamaica, cane toads responded to the environmental trigger exactly as their biology programmed them to do. They emerged from their hiding places, drawn by the moisture and the sound of rainfall, which signals prime breeding conditions. Males began calling, their deep trills attracting females, and then the spawning began. Thousands of cane toads across the affected regions laid their eggs in every available water source. Flooded fields, temporary ponds, roadside ditches, saturated grasslands, and perhaps most significantly, in the water that had collected in underground spaces and was now seeping through the porous limestone. The eggs hatched rapidly in the warm, tropical conditions. Within 2 to 3 days, tiny black tadpoles emerged. And this is where the timeline becomes critical. The tadpoles began their development in water that was, by its very nature, temporary. As the floodwaters receded and the ground began to dry out, these thousands of developing tadpoles found themselves in an increasingly desperate situation. The water sources they depended on were disappearing. Now imagine you're a tadpole barely a few days old. Your entire existence depends on water. You breathe through gills. You can't survive on land, not yet. You're still weeks away from developing the lungs and limbs you'll need to live as a toad. But the water around you is vanishing. The sun is evaporating the pools. The ground is absorbing the moisture. You're running out of time. What do? You move, you have to move. And that's exactly what happened in Content, Manchester, and likely in other areas of Jamaica that weren't captured on video. As their aquatic habitats dried up, thousands upon thousands of cane toad tadpoles began a desperate migration, searching for any remaining water source. They wriggled across wet ground, over roads, through yards, moving instinctively toward moisture, toward survival. The spectacle that the viral video captured wasn't an invasion from underground. It was an exodus. A massive, desperate attempt by an entire generation of cane toads to find water before it was too late. But here's the truly haunting part of this story. The vast majority of those tadpoles didn't make it. Cane toad tadpoles can survive out of water for only very short periods, maybe minutes to an hour at most if conditions are humid enough. Once exposed to air and sunlight, they quickly desiccate and die. The writhing mass that people witnessed was, in essence, a death march. Thousands of tadpoles struggling for survival, most of them doomed from the moment they left the receding water. For those that did find new water sources, the journey wasn't over. Cane toad tadpoles must compete for limited food resources, typically feeding on algae and organic matter in the water. In overcrowded conditions, which these post-hurricane breeding events certainly create, many tadpoles starve or fall victim to predation. Fish, birds, and even other tadpoles can become threats. The survival rate from egg to adult toad under ideal conditions is already quite low, perhaps 5%. In the chaotic aftermath of a hurricane-induced breeding frenzy, that rate drops even further. Yet despite these odds, enough tadpoles survive to maintain and even expand the cane toad population in Jamaica. And this is where the story shifts from bizarre natural phenomenon to legitimate environmental concern. Because while the tadpole swarms might have been a temporary, dramatic event, the long-term presence of cane toads in Jamaica represents a persistent ecological challenge that affects the island's native wildlife, ecosystems, and even human health. Let's talk about why cane toads are such problematic invasive species. First, there's their toxic defense mechanism. Cane toads produce powerful toxins called bufatoxins from glands located on their backs, particularly from the parotoid glands behind their eyes. These toxins are potent enough to kill or seriously harm most animals that try to eat them. Dogs are particularly vulnerable. A dog that bites or mouths a cane toad can experience symptoms ranging from excessive drooling and vomiting to seizures, cardiac arrest, and death, sometimes within just 15 minutes of exposure. Cats, while generally more cautious, can also be poisoned. Even humans can experience severe reactions if the toxin comes into contact with eyes, mouth, or open wounds. This toxicity gives cane toads a massive survival advantage. While native Jamaican frogs and toads must contend with predators like birds, snakes, and mammals, cane toads are largely immune to predation. Anything that tries to eat them once typically won't make that mistake twice if they survive the encounter. This lack of natural predators allows cane toad populations to explode in ways that native species simply cannot match. But the ecological impact goes beyond just their toxicity. Cane toads are generalist predators with enormous appetites. They eat virtually anything they can fit in their mouths. Insects, spiders, small frogs, lizards, small snakes, small mammals, bird eggs, and even pet food left outside. An adult cane toad can consume hundreds of insects in a single night. While this might sound beneficial, it actually disrupts the natural food web. Native insectivores like bats, birds, and native frogs suddenly face competition for food resources from an animal that has no natural checks on its population. There's also the issue of competition for breeding sites. Remember those 30,000 eggs a single female can produce? Native frog species in Jamaica, which are already facing pressures from habitat loss and climate change, must now compete with cane toads for suitable breeding locations. Cane toads are aggressive breeders. They'll take over ponds, ditches, and wetlands, often outcompeting native species simply through sheer reproductive output. Some researchers have documented cases where cane toad tadpoles actually prey on the eggs and tadpoles of native frog species, directly reducing their numbers. The economic impact shouldn't be overlooked either. Jamaican homeowners and farmers deal with cane toad infestations regularly. The toads are attracted to outdoor lights, which draw insects, and they'll congregate around homes, in gardens, and near agricultural areas. Their presence poses risks to pets and livestock. Their toxins can contaminate water sources if enough toads congregate in one area, and their sheer numbers can be overwhelming during peak breeding seasons, particularly after heavy rains. So when we look back at that viral video from Content Manchester, we're not just seeing a weird natural oddity. We're witnessing the visible manifestation of a much larger ecological issue that Jamaica has been grappling with for over 170 years. The tadpole swarms are dramatic, yes, but they're also a reminder of how human interventions in ecosystems, even those made with good intentions, can have cascading consequences that persist for generations. Scientists who study invasive species use events like the post-Hurricane Melissa tadpole emergence as opportunities to better understand cane toad behavior and population dynamics. Dr. Byron Wilson, a herpetologist at the University of the West Indies, has studied Jamaica's amphibians for decades. He explains that extreme weather events are likely to become more frequent due to climate change, and each one could potentially trigger similar mass breeding events. The warming temperatures also extend the breeding season for cane toads, allowing them to reproduce more times per year. This creates a concerning feedback loop. Climate change leads to more extreme weather, which creates more breeding opportunities, which increases cane toad populations, which puts even more pressure on native ecosystems. There's also fascinating research being done on whether Jamaican predators might eventually adapt to eat cane toads. In Australia, which has its own massive cane toad problem after the species was introduced there in 1935, scientists have observed that some native predators are evolving smaller mouth sizes, which prevents them from eating large, toxic adult toads, but allows them to consume smaller, less toxic juveniles. Other predators have learned behavioral adaptations, like flipping toads over to eat their less toxic undersides. Whether similar adaptations will occur in Jamaica remains to be seen, but it would take many generations of evolutionary pressure. Some Jamaican communities have taken matters into their own hands. There are grassroots efforts to control cane toad populations through organized collection events, particularly targeting breeding sites during spawning season. Collected toads are humanely euthanized, usually by freezing. While these efforts make local impacts, they're unlikely to significantly reduce the island-wide population given the toad's incredible reproductive capacity. It would require sustained, coordinated efforts across the entire island to make a meaningful dent in their numbers. Interestingly, researchers are also exploring whether cane toads might have any beneficial uses that could help offset their ecological costs. Their skin toxins are being studied for potential pharmaceutical applications. Some compounds derived from bufatoxins have shown promise in cancer research and as painkillers. There's even investigation into whether the toads could be harvested as a protein source for animal feed, though their toxicity complicates this significantly. These research directions don't erase the ecological damage cane toads cause, but they represent attempts to find something positive in an otherwise problematic situation. The mystery of the tadpole swarms, now solved, also teaches us something profound about how we perceive nature. That viral video captivated millions because it showed us something that seemed impossible, something that violated our expectations of how the world should work. Tadpoles don't emerge from the ground. They don't swarm like insects, except when they do. Nature is full of these moments where extreme conditions create extreme responses. The cane toads weren't doing anything supernatural. They were simply following their biological programming under extraordinary circumstances created by Hurricane Melissa. What makes this story even more compelling is how it connects to broader conversations about biodiversity, climate change, and human responsibility for the environments we alter. The person who decided to introduce cane toads to Jamaica in 1844 had no way of knowing the long-term consequences. They saw an immediate problem, pests eating sugar cane, and applied what seemed like a logical solution. Nearly 2 centuries later, Jamaica is still dealing with the aftermath. It's a cautionary tale about unintended consequences and the complexity of ecological systems. For the residents of Content, Manchester, who witnessed those tadpole swarms firsthand, the experience was undoubtedly unsettling. Imagine stepping out of your home a few days after a devastating hurricane, already dealing with flood damage and power outages, only to find your yard and street covered in thousands of writhing tadpoles. It's the kind of biblical plague imagery that would make anyone's heart race. But understanding the science behind it transforms that fear into something else, a window into the hidden processes that shape our natural world. The tadpoles themselves, had they been able to complete their development, would have transformed into toadlets within 6 to 8 weeks. These young toads would then face their own survival challenges, avoiding the few predators that might risk eating them, finding sufficient food, and competing with millions of other cane toads across Jamaica for territory and resources. Most wouldn't survive their first year, but enough would make it to adulthood to continue the cycle, laying their own thousands of eggs when the next big rain came. And the next big rain will come. Jamaica, located in the hurricane belt of the Caribbean, faces tropical storms and hurricanes regularly. Each major weather event has the potential to trigger similar breeding explosions. The 2024 Atlantic hurricane season was particularly active, and climate scientists predict that warming ocean temperatures will lead to more intense, if not necessarily more frequent, tropical systems in the coming decades. Every Hurricane Melissa-level event could potentially produce another generation of mass tadpole migrations. Some environmental educators in Jamaica have used the viral tadpole video as a teaching moment, particularly for young people. It's an opportunity to discuss invasive species, ecological balance, climate change, and the interconnectedness of environmental systems. Schools have incorporated the event into science curricula, asking students to research cane toad biology and propose management strategies. This kind of engagement is crucial because today's students will be tomorrow's environmental stewards, tasked with managing the ongoing challenges that invasive species present. There's also a cultural dimension to how Jamaicans relate to cane toads. The animals appear in folklore and local stories. They're a common sight in rural areas, and most Jamaicans learn from a young age not to touch them because of their toxicity. The toads have become, in a way, part of the island's identity, even though they're not native. This familiarity can actually work against conservation efforts because people become resigned to their presence rather than seeing them as an active problem that requires management. The viral nature of the tadpole video also reveals something about our current media landscape. In an age where information spreads instantly across the globe, a phenomenon that might have once been a local curiosity becomes an international sensation within hours. Millions of people who had never heard of content, Manchester, Jamaica, suddenly knew exactly where it was and what happened there. This global attention can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it raises awareness about environmental issues and the impacts of invasive species. On the other hand, it can lead to misinformation, fear-mongering, and oversimplified explanations that don't capture the full complexity of what's actually happening. What's remarkable is that the explanation for the tadpole mystery is, in some ways, more fascinating than any of the wild theories that circulated online. Ancient creatures bursting from underground caverns would have been exciting, but the reality of how extreme weather, invasive species biology, and environmental conditions conspired to create this spectacle is genuinely awe-inspiring. It shows us that nature doesn't need to be supernatural to be absolutely extraordinary. As we wrap up this deep dive into the tadpole mystery, it's worth reflecting on what it all means. Hurricane Melissa came and went. The floodwaters receded. Most of those thousands of tadpoles perished in their desperate search for water. But the cane toads remain. They're still breeding in Jamaica's ponds and puddles. They're still competing with native species. They're still producing their thousands of eggs every time conditions are right. The mystery might be solved, but the story is far from over. It's an ongoing ecological saga that will continue to unfold for generations to come, shaped by weather patterns, human interventions, and the remarkable adaptability of an invasive species that refuses to be stopped. The next time you see something bizarre in nature, something that seems impossible or apocalyptic, remember the tadpoles of Jamaica. Look deeper, ask questions, seek the science behind the spectacle, because more often than not, the truth is stranger, more complex, and more beautiful than any mystery could ever be.